Hey team. Yesterday, my 76-year-old aunt disappeared on a strenuous hike in Pisgah National Forest. To give you a little backstory, my mom was the youngest of 9 children, and a few of my aunts and her older sisters have kept in touch with us over the years. Two of them were able to visit this weekend, and I picked them up from the airport and decided to surprise them with a nice hike. Many years ago, as my mother was entering the final stages of suffering with a chronic illness known as scleroderma, she wore an oxygen pack and hiked this same trail that I took them on yesterday. So I wanted to surprise my aunts with going on this hike together so that they could see the same view that my mom was able to see at the end. As we're heading up, we stop numerous times so that everybody can catch their breath and get their feet and legs back under them and feel recovered. So we weren't trying to make it too strenuous. And as we reached about 80% of the way up, my Aunt Honey said she wanted to sit one more time, and so she did. And then she told us to continue on to the top and that she was done with the climbing for the day and she was going to head back down. When I heard this, I thought, no, we're certainly not going to leave her behind. We can sit here for a moment, let her catch her breath, and then maybe she feels ready to move on further. And as I looked, her other sister had taken off up the hill. And so now I have a 71-year-old aunt headed uphill, a 76-year-old aunt hanging out saying she's going to head back down. And I'm not sure which one I'm supposed to stay with. And so I realized that my Aunt Honey could head back down. It was just mostly a single trail with one crossing. And so she could make it to the bottom. And my Aunt Pat didn't know where to go when she was headed to the top. And so I stood for a moment with my Aunt Honey and I said, don't sit for too long. Make sure you at least move around a little bit so you don't get too stiff before you head back down. And she said, okay, and seemed very pleasant and peaceful sitting there. So I headed up the hill with my Aunt Pat. Now, rain was in a distant part of the forecast, but as Aunt Pat and I reached the top and sat at the bald and looked at the view, the clouds were rolling in, and so was the rain. And so we decided to head back down. And we headed down, and the rain got heavier and heavier. And when we reached the spot where my Aunt Honey had stopped, she wasn't there. So we assumed she headed on down, and off we went. And it took us probably 45 minutes from that point to get down to the bottom. And as we approach the parking lot, I don't see my Aunt Honey standing near the car. And we start walking through the parking lot looking for her, calling her name, and we don't hear anything. And at this point, we realize there is no cell service. There's no way to contact a search and rescue. And I'm not certain where she could possibly have gone. I see a camper van with a couple of mountain bikers that are packing up. And so I walk over to the van and I say, hey, are you ladies harboring a wet 76-year-old woman in your van? And they kind of looked at me strange because I was just making a light joke, trying to diffuse the tension of the situation and the reality of it. And they asked me what I meant. And I shared the story that one aunt had continued on and she was with me, and the other had decided to head down. And we expected to see her, but she's not here. And we're not sure where she might be. And so they obviously felt some concern. And we talked that possibly at the one trail crossing that she took the longer route instead of the shorter route, and that she was looping around. And so one biker said that she would take off up one direction and then I would run the trail the other direction and we would meet up at the junction and hopefully one of us would find her. So she takes off on the mountain bike and I take off running back up the trail. And probably about 15 minutes of running up the trail, I see a woman cruising on down, and sure enough, it's my Aunt Honey, looking as peaceful and excited as possible. And I was excited as well. And so I stopped her and I said, honey, how did you get here? And she said that she was sitting there on the log and thinking about how I had said not to sit for too long. And she said she had a little commune with my mom's spirit. My mom told her that she could do it and she should head up to the top. And so she decided instead of staying there that she would head to the top and see us up there. And there are multiple little offshoot trails to the stony overlook. And so, sure enough, my Aunt Pat and I took one of those and we sat at the top just very briefly. And then we started to head back out. And around that time, my Aunt Honey must have moved past and taken a different one. And so she reached the top just after us, and we headed all the way down. And so she didn't see us. And so she decided to head back down. And so our alarm was not necessary, but still very present. And so I told her that, search and rescue was on the way and I was going to go meet them and that she should continue the walk back to the car. And so she took the walk back to the car and I ran the rest of the way up the trail until I met the mountain biker and shared the story with her. She was very sweet. She got some tears thinking about my mom's sisters coming back and visiting and us redoing that hike together. And I was able to run all the way down that trail with her riding her bike. And we made it all the way back to the parking lot. And we eventually dried off and got some food and had a really wonderful rest of the day. And aside from everything being wonderful, what I really want to share is how grateful I am for the efforts that I've put in of ensuring that my body is capable of bringing me to and through those amazing moments. A little over a year ago, I was in a very bad condition. My breathing was very challenged. My ability to sustain long-term efforts was incredibly low. I had to debate whether I truly wanted to walk up a flight of stairs because of how out of breath I was going to get. That was not for lack of effort. I was putting in a few days a week, 10 to 15 minutes a day of focused exercise, and then was working the rest of the day trying to rehab my gym from a major flood. And my requirements for asthma medication were climbing. And with 6 months of that, my conditioning had gotten quite terrible. Mind you, I was doing lots of meditation work. I was doing lots of self-massage work. I was eating very good, healthy foods the whole time. I was aware of my appetite. My body weight had changed minimally over that time period. But not doing what I needed for my body as the primary allowed my body to continue to decay and get to a really bad place. And so I noticed that about a year ago, and I decided I am going to prioritize number one, my physical exercise each day. And I've been doing that 16 straight months, 5 to 6 days a week, an hour of work a day. And about a year ago, around the gym, I would do hill climbs. And I could make it about 20 or 30 seconds up the hill and would be so uncomfortable and so tight in my chest and my heart that I had to stand. And I would stop and stand, and then I would feel comfortable and I would continue. And then I would feel tight again, and I would stop and stand, and I would find more comfort and I would continue. And this process just repeated over and over and over. I would be on the exercise bike doing intervals or the rower, and I would feel like my eyelids were heavy because I was so tired. Not from a high intense output, but because my body said, you've pushed yourself a lot. Let's make sure we can trust that you'll do the easy work for a long enough period of time to build a foundation. I maintained all of my strength during those 6 months of falling apart. During those 6 months of not prioritizing, my peak was still there. I could achieve a high level of intensity, but my ability to sustain was super low. But in showing up and doing the work often enough and for long enough, my body has responded positively. And it's allowed me to be there to be on that hike with them when something seemed off, to be able to increase my intensity and meet the need, and to do so comfortably, and to show up today feeling fine and ready to go again. So my Aunt Honey, my Aunt Pat, they feel good today and they'll leave tomorrow. And they've got some laughs and some memories of their trip here to Asheville and their time spent remembering their sister and my mother. And we've got some laughs that we got to share and we'll get to remember for the rest of our time here as well. There's no amount of foreshadowing that's going to help you see that the work that you put in today and the work you put in tomorrow and the work you put in the next day is going to lead you to a better place. There is no amount of foreshadowing that makes that perfectly obvious. You've got to just show up and do it. And when you show up and you put in that work, it will pay dividends. I don't hesitate to walk up the stairs anymore. I don't even think of it. But I hesitate to run uphill for 45 minutes. I don't hesitate to run horizontally for 30 minutes. But I hesitate to run for an hour. The edges will always be there. The limitations will always be there, but you can put in the work and you can nudge them farther out so that you can have a greater life experience, so you can be available for the needs and opportunities that life can provide. It's not always going to be easy. It is always going to be worth it. A portion of my life's work has been helping somebody like my mom, driven and goal oriented, but given the wrong advice. Tough and patient, but willing to put up with more pain than she needs to because she wasn't guided the right way. My life's work is creating that guidance in the right direction. My life's work is helping those people who are patient and tough to build the foundation so that they can see themselves through to the end with peace, with love, with joy. All right, team. Thanks for listening. Happy Sunday.